Hello everybody, happy Monday and thanks for joining me in viewing this video. I am doing this video because I had some castings I needed to add to storage, and I've been asked a few times how I store my castings, and since I'm adding some, I figured I would just show you. This is a 6-gallon bucket, not 5, and this is how I store my castings. So if you see on the top, it is not completely flawless, sifted, immaculate. And I do that on purpose because I know inevitably there will be some tiny hatchling worms or cocoons, or more likely both, that will end up in my stored castings. And they can either, die if the castings have nothing, or they can grow and I can find them when I use the castings, or they can get tossed into the garden, which is even better. But in this bucket right now, this very top part is dry because I just added some new sifted castings. But in here, as I will show you, I always keep a little bait cup with some wet bedding and some food. And let's see, I check it about, maybe every 2 weeks, or when I add castings, whichever happens more frequently. So if I'm adding castings every day, I might peek in here every day. So this, let's see, I'm going to actually pull this out so we can actually dump it out and take a look. Alright, so I've been looking in this bus bin here, sorting some worms and castings. I'm just going to dump out my bait cup and see if we have any takers in here. Let's look in the bottom. I see a worm. And see that guy down there? He's pretty sizable, so that tells me, let me get it out so you can see it, maybe. Oh, there he is. That tells me it's been growing in here for some time now. I'm quite confident I didn't miss this worm because it's too big. So it's been growing in here, and well, now it's done growing in here. So it will come out and get tossed into, well, this is a red wiggler, as you can see. So it'll get tossed into my wiggler bin. And my bait cup is usually like just whatever I would feed my worms and some bedding. Banana peel with banana down in it still. Since I don't expect a lot of worms in here, I'm not surprised this isn't gone. I'd be more surprised if it was, because I don't want to end up with a lot of worms in my castings, but I'm sure there are always going to be some. If it's not the worms that I miss, then it's some cocoons, and I want them to have the ability to hatch and get into the bait so I can either use them in my worm bin or let them go into the garden and do their magic there. Okay, I see a couple more right there. Little tiny critters. And again, I think, given the size at least of that one there, I think that one has been growing in here for some time. So there's a few takers there. Now, I always have some leaves in there because that will attract the red wigglers, which is exactly what that is. Let's see, I have a bean pod. Oh, I can see some I think those are mites. Let's zoom in. Let's see if we can tell. Okay, my phone is not cooperating. Actually, no. Those are not mites. It's just a little bit of some sort of fungal activity. But no, it's not mites. Okay. So you can see there's a pretty more than just a couple worms in here. And I'm sure I missed some worms, and I'm sure that some hatched from cocoons. So, having this bait cup in here is just as good as having a cocoon nursery. The only downside of it is that since I mix all my casting types together, meaning regardless of what worm made the castings, I store the castings together, the worms that I collect out of here have to be easily identifiable, or they just go into my urban worm bag, which is a mix of worms. I always can tell the Indian blue worms and the African night crawlers, and if they're big enough, the red wigglers, but the small Euros and the small red wigglers look similar enough so that I'm not confident until they're at least a couple inches long, maybe an inch and a half long. Then they start getting some distinguished looking marks. So what I do is I will take this now, all of this material here, and I'll take this banana peel back out and resurrect it and put it back in the bait cup. And then I will put new bedding in this bait cup. And I will take all of this with the worms in it and add it into my urban worm bag. It'll serve as a feeding since this is so rich in leaves and it has shredded cardboard, and since it was some of my pre-made bedding, it has alfalfa, and there's some beans in here, and so this is just be a feeding for them, and it'll introduce probably, I would say there's probably at least 25 worms in here of very small to medium small size. We were seeing them as I was unpacking this, but of course now they want to hide. Now you can see a baby one right there on top on that leaf. That's a very small one. Why is it sometimes I can see the small ones easier than I can see the bigger ones? Oh, okay, so let's go back. So that's what I do with this. I can see another one, or that may be two, I'm not sure. Let's go back again to the castings. Okay, so here's the bucket of castings. You can see the indentation where I have the bait cup. Now there may be a few worms in the walls around the bait cup. I don't put holes in the bottom of my bait cup because I don't want the worms in the bait, or in the castings rather, nibbling from the bottom but not actually going in. If they're gonna get the reward of the food, then they need to go in to get it. But that doesn't mean they weren't sniffing around and are close. If anything, I will find them in the walls around it. But it's not very many, and it's not very often. Now you can see as we get further down in these castings, first of all, let me do a squeeze. You see how this is? This is perfect. I can squeeze it. No drops of water comes out, but my hand will glisten. It will make a ball, and then it'll right away separate. I do keep these watered. I water maybe, I don't know, I'd have to say maybe a cup a week for a full bucket. And just pour it right over the top. That way, the micro life forms and all the beneficial bacteria stay alive. Because if castings become completely dried out, you can't revive them. Once the bacteria and minuscule forms of life, all that healthy flora that we're creating castings to take the benefits from, it's all that healthy bacteria and enzymes and microbial life forms and miniature critters that we couldn't even begin to see. It's all alive. Castings is a living organism, and as a living organism, it needs to eat and it needs to drink. So if your castings are completely void of any particles to eat, which is not usually a problem, but more so if they dry out completely. You can wet them to make them moist again, but you cannot bring back to life the organisms that were in it. They will be sterile castings. You can still use it in your garden as a additive to help, you know, as a perhaps as a to break up hard soil or to help maintain moisture, but it won't provide that effect of, say, a fertilizer, because all those microorganisms that do all the magic and the pH associated with that, it goes away if they get too dry. So regardless of what your casting storage system looks like, don't forget that your castings are alive and they need the same things that your worms need to stay alive: food and water. Now I have here, let me see if I can reach it. After I put the bait cup back in, I just put this, just a piece of bubble wrap, and put it down over the top, and you know, it helps it stay moist in between. So that's all. All right, I just wanted to do that video because I've been asked a few times how I store them. And then, you know, I don't put any snap-on cover or anything. I have a table right here that has a bunch of my succulents in it. Look, this one right now is flowering, this little guy, and it has the prettiest flowers on it. And one of the things that I do with my castings is my succulents. I'll give you a little quick look. They're kind of not in the best of shape right now. It's drawing near the end of winter, but they're doing okay. This is a rhubarb plant I accidentally started, so I will let it earn its keep. So yeah, these are some of my succulents, and I have my various aloes along the back, but this little guy here decided to flower for me. So it's got pretty little pink flowers. They're like little bulblets with a slight green throat. I think that's called the throat. No, the throat is on the inside. Green tip. I don't know. Anyway, so yep, these are some of my succulents. These are they're called Christmas sleigh succulents. I guess you can see why. I mean Christmas sleigh aloes, not succulents. And they've been multiplying. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with them all. I keep breaking them off and putting them in new containers, but they're multiplying like crazy, as is this one here. I had one of these, and now I have, about 40. So, and you can see there's 3 in just this one pot alone. So, and then I have some thyme and some oregano, and over there I have a smorgasbord of various things that need to get planted in the ground. Let's see. That's my favorite aloe right there. You can see I keep apple cider vinegar cups in between them and all the flies that it caught, which is why I have no flies around them. All right, look at me now showing off my plants. Well, we might as well do a little mini tour, huh? This is actually an agave, not an aloe. It's looking like it's ready to go back outside. There's another, and of course it has babies. And my little mini snake plants. And I've got a couple of little cactuses, very small, but they do well. Look there, let's see if we could look at this flower again. They're pretty little flowers. I like them. All right, that's all. So that's what I do with my castings, and now you've gotten to see some of my succulents. I have some in every room of this house, so That's just some of them. That's one of the reasons I have so many worms. Besides my outside garden, I have my inside plant obsession. Like Anne, and I have a Japanese plum tree growing in a pot in my house also, with a Rose of Sharon in there too. So yeah, lots of things going on in here. All right, everybody, have an awesome day till we talk again.